The Great War has begun. Strikes on the capital, the elimination of the commander-in-chief. A state of emergency has been declared and events are being urgently cancelled. The conflict has already affected all countries in the region. We'll tell you what happens next. Is the president's grandiose statement about the elections going to violate the Constitution, or is it a call for a coup? We'll get into the details. Russia has botched the operation. Moscow is quietly preparing a major offensive in Ukraine, but their plans turned out to be easy to detect. Analysts have revealed the details of the Russian breakthrough. During questioning in the Epstein case, the president sincerely revealed everything he knew, and who could now lose their jobs. About these and other key events of Saturday evening, February 28. You're doing the right thing, watch to the end. We select the most important and interesting news especially for you. On air with Next, I'm Alexei Berlikov. Let's go. A preemptive strike on a country with enormous nuclear potential has turned into a regional conflict. The world is frozen in anticipation of a response, a reaction, explosions. And they followed, and we'll tell you all about it now. Israel has declared an immediate state of emergency. The official name is Operation Lion's Roar. This operation is against a specific threat directed against us. In recent months, we have discovered that the regime continues to advance offensive plans against the state of Israel, focused on restoring and accelerating ballistic missile production, developing, strengthening, and concealing its nuclear program, and further shaping and advancing its plan to destroy Israel. Key targets have been attacked in Tehran. Strikes have been reported on intelligence buildings and Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps facilities. Information has emerged about targeted assassination attempts. Who exactly and with what results remains unclear. The Israeli side has so far confirmed only the deaths of Iranian Army Commander-in-Chief Amir Khatami and Mohammad Pakra, commander of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. In Israel, and elsewhere, people are being called upon to seize power while the regime is weakened. We will create conditions that will allow the brave Iranian people to free themselves from the burden of this murderous regime. This is your chance to build a new and free Iran. Take your destiny into your own hands, raise your heads, and look to the sky. Our forces are out there, pilots of the free world. Everyone is coming to your aid. And I believe the day is near when Israel and a free Iran will join hands in the name of security and peace. The Home Front Command has updated its instructions. Classes at educational institutions have been cancelled, and large gatherings are prohibited. Airspace is closed. Meanwhile, intensive strikes are being carried out on Lebanese territory. The first phase of this attack is expected to last 4 days. The army states that proactive warning is aimed at preparing for a possible escalation. The consequences of this strike on Iran are already appearing online. Shelling has been confirmed in several cities. Details of the operation, as usual, are not yet being disclosed. The current location of the president and supreme spiritual leader of Iran is unknown. State media are claiming they're fine. But, for example, satellite images of the residence, and the evidence suggests it's likely no longer habitable. We previously discussed his plans to flee to Moscow, but that information is also impossible to verify right now. Iranian Supreme Leader Soleimani was killed in an airstrike, Israeli media are reporting. But Iranian media has yet to confirm this. We will destroy their navy. We guarantee that terrorist proxy forces in the region will no longer be able to destabilize the region or the world or attack our forces, and will no longer use IEDs, or roadside bombs, as they're sometimes called, to severely injure and kill thousands upon thousands of people, including many Americans. And we guarantee that Iran will not acquire nuclear weapons. The message is very simple. They will never have nuclear weapons. Iran's response was heard throughout the Middle East. Every country in the region, except Oman, was forced to repel Iranian strikes. The targets were primarily American military installations, but civilian casualties have already been confirmed. According to Iran's Fars news agency, the U.S. Navy's 5th Fleet base in Bahrain was hit. Authorities urgently urged residents to find safety. Explosions were also heard in Kuwait, where up to 13,500 U.S. troops are stationed. Iran launched at least 2 missiles at Qatar. The country's Ministry of Defense stated that all targets were intercepted by the Patriot system, but explosions still occurred. Smoke also rose over Abu Dhabi and Dubai, with the declared targets including the Al Udeid, Al Salem, and Al Dhafra air bases, as well as U.S. installations in Bahrain. However, the diplomatic avenue is allegedly still open. During February talks in Oman, Iran reportedly signaled its willingness to hand over its stockpiles of highly enriched uranium to Russia and freeze enrichment for 3 years. But diplomacy is now taking a back seat. The region is teetering on the brink of a major conflict, and the next step could change everything. "I won't run for another term," he said, "but, in principle, I could, so I probably will." Donald Trump is playing on the edge again. The U.S. president again hinted at the possibility of a third term, claiming he has a right to one because, in his words, the 2020 election was stolen from him. However, no evidence of widespread fraud in the 2020 election was presented. Joe Biden won. Should we stay for another term? Well, we have a right to, because they cheated us in the runoff. If you think about it, we actually do have a right to. In his speech, he reiterated the talking points of his State of the Union address, again attacked Congresswoman Ilhan Mara, a Democrat, and shared a strange story about an acquaintance who allegedly claimed his marriage had improved because his retirement account had grown thanks to the Trump administration's policies. The U.S. Constitution explicitly prohibits a third term, but Trump is throwing out another phrase and reigniting the debate. The Occupiers' plans are so transparent that they've been spotted from halfway around the world. Spring hasn't even begun, but the front is already moving, and moving at a rather interesting pace. There's a sense of grand plans, coupled with a clear desire to get there before the enemy. The American Institute for the Study of War warns that Russia is preparing for a new offensive in the Donetsk region. The so-called fortress belt and forward positions of the Ukrainian armed forces are in their sights. On February 26 to 27, Russians struck the village of Bilinkaya with cannon artillery for the first time. Previously, it was rarely used at such distances. Drones are also actively operating. Strikes are being carried out 20 to 100 kilometers from the front line. Analysts believe this is a signal. A ground assault could begin soon. The goal is to cut off logistics between the cities and create an air defense. The Institute's analysts emphasize that even if the offensive begins, it will be a long and grueling process. Russia has not yet accumulated sufficient resources for a decisive strike, but reinforcements are being amassed in the Slavic direction. The front could become heated again. Against this backdrop, the deployment of boats from the Black Sea Fleet is being recorded in Sevastopol. Meanwhile, Ukrainian air defenses are intercepting almost all the drones Russia is using to attack the country. The situation is escalating, but we are monitoring it together with you. Berlin is ready to talk to Moscow, but there is a strict condition for the ceasefire to begin. Diplomacy with Russia is currently hopeless, says Friedrich Merz. He also recalled that Orban traveled to Moscow with a peace initiative and returned empty-handed. Immediately after the visit, some of the most intense attacks on civilian infrastructure began. The French diplomat's visit also changed nothing. Putin's goal is not only to expand Russia's reach westward, but also to destroy anything that threatens the emergence of democracy and the rule of law on its borders. We must defend ourselves and defend Ukraine from this aggression. However, as experience shows, the Kremlin dictator couldn't care less about Europe's conditions or its willingness to negotiate with him. But what if this very statement becomes a breakthrough? What do you think? Be sure to let us know in the comments. Oil is leaking out of the Russian budget uncontrollably, not generating the profits that once allowed the country to be called a gas station. Now Moscow is losing its largest customer. In January, India reduced its imports of Russian oil by 40%. In year-on-year terms, this is more than half, and this is the lowest level since June of 2022. Russia's share of Indian imports has fallen to 21%, the lowest level since the fall of 2022. The reason? U.S. pressure and negotiations over a trade deal with Washington. Donald Trump has already lifted the 25% tariff on Indian goods and announced that New Delhi has committed to stopping purchases of Russian oil. India hasn't officially confirmed the waiver, but the U.S. has warned that tariffs will be reinstated if supplies resume. India is quickly replacing the vacated volumes. The Middle East already accounts for 55% of imports. Saudi Arabia is reaching its highest level since 2019, and Venezuela is also returning. Its oil is cheaper. Branded oil is about $15 per barrel. And this is hitting Russia harder than any statement. The president has laid bare the Epstein case. He decided to break his silence immediately after testifying before the House committee. U.S. President Bill Clinton denied seeing anything and did nothing wrong. He said he would never have flown on Epstein's plane if he had known about the abuse of minors. I didn't know about the crimes Epstein committed, no matter how many photos they showed of me. I know what I saw and, more importantly, what I didn't see. I know what I did and, more importantly, what I didn't do. As someone who grew up in a violent home, not only would I not have flown on his plane if I had had the slightest idea what he was doing, I would have turned him in to the authorities myself. This is the first time in history that a sitting or former U.S. president has been effectively compelled to testify before Congress. Clinton communicated with Epstein before his 2008 conviction for soliciting a minor for prostitution. However, no formal charges were ever brought against Clinton in the investigations. Jeffrey Epstein maintained ties to elite figures, businessmen, financiers, and politicians until his death in 2019. His case remains one of the most toxic stories in the American establishment. Now you'll ask why I wasn't there at that moment. But this story has a very unhappy ending. A military plane crashed right onto a highway. The plane was carrying new banknotes ordered by the central bank. After the crash, the money scattered all over the area. People flocked to the scene. Police had to use tear gas to disperse those collecting the bills. A Bolivian Air Force plane was approaching El Alto when it skidded off the runway, broke apart, and burst into flames. The debris struck cars. At least 15 people were killed, the crew and people on the road. Later, the head of the central bank stated, "All the banknotes transported are invalid. They will not be accepted for payment. The money is there, but it's just paper." Quote, and in the last issue, we talked about a slap in the face for the Kremlin's vassal, a covert operation by the Ukrainian armed forces and Lukashenko's leaky air defenses, which disabled a key military facility, a parallel sharp escalation and a strike on a nuclear facility. Against this backdrop, Kyiv and Moscow even agreed to a truce and ceasefire. But the main question is, how long will this last? Another important point. Putin's longtime ally suddenly turned out to be his secret opponent within Russia. The atmosphere was reminiscent of 1937, a large-scale purge, which even included Kremlin propagandists. If you haven't seen it yet, be sure to watch it. And we'll meet in the morning.